What is going on, people? Welcome back to DXB Crypto. First of all, I would like to wish you Eid al-Adha Mubarak for the millions around the world celebrating Eid today. Today is the day of Arafah, so it's a very important day. But it's a day we spread love, peace, kindness, and togetherness. Not stuff that Elon and Trump know about. So anyway, Eid Mubarak to you guys. We'll have fun today, of course. But before we start our video, these lines were drawn in yesterday's video. And this is Cocoro. And I said to you guys, look at Cocoro. It's in this channel. It will come down and touch this, which it did, right? And it absolutely bounced off like a clockwork. So congratulations, anyone who bought this dip. It's an important dip. And it is a dip that will make you a lot of money. Still a micro cap, sub $20 million. So grab yourself a bag of Cocoro because your portfolio is going to need it ultimately when the bull market runs. Now, we had this disaster yesterday, of course, Elon Musk versus Donald Trump. But what did it do to Ethereum's price? And again, I gave you this level of ETH in my video yesterday, which was just above 2,200 and about 2,240. Why? Because it is a very important support and resistance line. You can see here plenty of activity going on. That's where the price is. As long as we hold up here, we are good to go. Bitcoin, on the other hand, despite what was going on, has remained remarkably strong, and it's up 2%. And I did say to you, there are two lines with Bitcoin. It's the black line here, 100,000 support, and the red dotted line up above, which is the previous all-time high for resistance. And the dynamics were very simple. Hold 100,000 and, of course, break 112,000, with 107 being a very key level for the liquidity that sits around at this level, right? So let's jump on to the juicy part of the video. So first of all, you got the African guy versus the German guy in the United States beefing. And the question that I asked myself was, do you know what beef is? Ask yourself. Beef is when you need 2 gats just to go to sleep. Beef is when your mom ain't safe up in the streets. Beef is when I see you. Anyway, shout out to Biggie Smalls. A lot of people thinking, raw, the guy's giving crypto knowledge here. Now, that's hip-hop knowledge right there, bro. But anyway, let me just go one step clear here. You got the German guy versus the South African guy beefing in the United States. And of course, the E-files, the Epstein files were mentioned. And this is madness, right? Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. So, wow. I thought they were all named in it. All the old perverts were in the Epstein files. You got a few Brits there, like Prince Andrew. Of course, you've got Trump, who is brethren or good friends with Epstein. There's a lot going on, man. These guys, obviously, he's not going to deport him, and it happened yesterday. But I knew this beef was always not gonna end well. When I saw little X having beef.
Elon Musk to say a few words, and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So at a high level, if you say what is the goal of Doge and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, are we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, okay, we would have to, if you sorry.
Do you know what beef is?
Can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if
are you looking at my direction, bruv? Are you cutting me up? Yeah? Don't chat to my dad. That's what's going on here. This relationship was never going to last. These two were beefing quite clearly earlier on. And as a result, it's like, yo, don't bring your mans to the office, innit? But in all seriousness, it all kicked off yesterday. in the most spectacular fashion, in the most look on a personal level. Look, I don't give a damn about American politics. Clearly, I'm not from there. But America was once upon a time looked at as the leader of the free world, in decorum, in democracy, in integrity. But lately, it's become a bit of a joke. You know, you're losing your AAA credit ratings. You've got South Africans and Germans beefing in the US, and no one's getting deported. I wonder why. What's going on? So look, it's funny. America is the world leader, and with all jokes aside, whatever the beef is here, it has clearly impacted our bottom line. I know a lot of people that got liquidated yesterday because of this, and whether their beef continues, whether it calms down, it's just definitely not a good look for America, especially when when Elon is calling for a recession in the latter stages of 2025. I think that nukes our hopes. Again, negative sentiment. Not that the markets give a fuck, like Bitcoin's doing rather okay. But this is insane. And of course, their beef goes as hard as any fallout I've ever seen between two leaders on a global stage. Not surprised, though. This is the best form of television. This is home and away EastEnders, The Bill, friggin', I don't know, Baywatch. There's all kinds of... And Stormy Daniels hasn't even entered the discussions yet. Possibly, off the back of this shenanigans, if they lose the House, what are we going to spend the whole of the second half of his term? It's going to be impeachments, it's going to be inquiries, blah, blah, blah. And maybe that's going to distract him, because if you look at back in 2021 or 2020, when obviously he was going through all of that stuff, he was less involved in the markets. But whether that's a good thing for us or not, time will tell. But this is crazy.
Of the late convicted sex offender, tariffs will cause a recession, calling him ungrateful, saying that his tariffs will cause a recession, and alleging that he is named in the files of the late convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. Watching it all is Sarah Smith.
Give it to Elon as a presentation from our country. Thank you, Elon.
A golden key to the White House was Elon Musk's leaving present. Now, less than a week later, Donald Trump might want to think about changing the locks.
Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if it will anymore. I was surprised because...
Today, the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, was the Oval Office guest star, but Elon Musk and his criticism of Mr. Trump's spending bill dominated the conversation, to the president's obvious irritation.
But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem.
Just minutes later, Elon Musk replied on X, saying, "False. This bill was never shown to me even once, and was passed in the dead of night, so fast almost no one in Congress could even read it."
Where is he? Come on up here, Elon.
Meaning that without him, and the more than 200 would have lost the election. They were once seen together everywhere. Now their row is being conducted in plain sight, on social media. Mr. Trump on Truth Social upped the ante with, "Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy." Musk called that an obvious lie, and then really escalated the abuse, suggesting Donald Trump has withheld files related to Jeffrey Epstein, who was arrested on charges of sex trafficking and died by suicide in jail, because he's named in them. Mr. Musk tweeted, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they've not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT."
Yeah. So this is a fully blown beef between these two guys, but I do think that at the end of the day, crypto will absolutely survive and thrive. Where we go from here is hard to see, because again, yesterday I gave you another chart which on the weekly just showed you what happened this time last year, right? So this is the Japanese carry trade wick. And this was the action from June. So especially in this particular period here, we printed that doji candle and we went down for, from 10th of June all the way to the 2nd of the September. And that's when the markets bottomed. And ultimately, we started to climb again. Boring summer. And that you can clearly see what I'm talking about here. This is exactly what happened in 2024, especially if you take this section. Of course, we did have a bottom in after this wick here. That came on the April 29th, 2024. But really, our disaster began at this wick here on the 10th of June. And we went all the way down to as low as $49,000 on Bitcoin. But what you did have is June was completely, absolutely mashed up. And then we had a little recovery in July before ultimately bottoming the Japanese carry trade on Monday, the 5th of August. Everybody remembers that. Then the Japanese carry trade continued. Bitcoin recovered to over $57,000. Then we topped here at 64. And then one last time we came down to test the $50,000 level around here this week. And then we went $56,000. Of course, we did come back one more time to $59,000. But for the rest, we went into the kind of September, from September the 2nd, September the 9th, really, this week over here. We never really looked back until we went all the way to the all-time highs. And you can see here, 3 months of absolute crazy Bitcoin uptrend. But this is the period where these two blue arrows, this was the lull in the summer. And if these guys are beefing so far, Bitcoin has remained, and I did say that it will come down to the black line. And of course, we will test the red line above from the black line. And so far, it has played to perfection. Now we're looking at the daily, it's even more obvious, right? If we look at the daily, Bitcoin wicked to this black line we talked about yesterday. And of course, there is a bit of reaction, but don't be surprised if we come down to this $96,000, $97,000 level. It's all in the game, guys. It's all in the game. But right now, there's a lot of mess. Again, Bitcoin dominance has found a new form of strength, which is above this 200 EMEA or moving average. 64.61 is the level of Bitcoin dominance. And of course, that is where we are right now. And could we squeeze back into this ascending channel that we lost, or will this actually act as a full resistance and safeguard us and save our alt season? One thing's for sure, 2021 and 2020 were nowhere near as hard as what we're seeing right now. This is this is a different market. This is a more of a trader's market. And I think, because look, at the end of the day, if we look at let's go back to May 2021, right? This green box here is May 2021. And you can clearly see Bitcoin dominance roll from December. Really, January started to go into full bearish mode. But even if we're on the 5th of April here, we could see we haven't got a bearish momentum of several weeks or months of the Bitcoin dominance. So ideally, if you look at 2021, what we had is a roll of the Bitcoin dominance on this exact date. Monday, the 4th of January, Bitcoin printed a bearish candle. And look what followed. 2-3 weeks, got what months here, February. And then, of course, it pumped up a little bit back in March, on the 8th of March, 2021. But look at that. It's a sustained bearish Bitcoin dominance until it bottomed, right, over here. But we look at that 17th of May. And then it went back up a little bit, lost again. And then we had another pump over here. So if you look over the 6th of September, Bitcoin dominance continued to be in this chop. And you could ultimately see here back in September 2021, Bitcoin dominance went as low as 38%. Then what happened? It picked up. It picked up again. Of course, this is all the way down in 2022, but in 2021, you had this beautiful November. Look at this run here, right? June 2020, we had a pump, then Bitcoin dominance went up, and then winter months, it just capitulated. But then we had a subsequently good months after that as well, in the early parts of 2021, all right? But look at this, September, October, November, throughout the whole summer. It was a beautiful picture, guys. And that's just, we don't have that right now. We're fighting with a multi-year trend of the Bitcoin dominance, and you're not really seeing anything of what I've actually witnessed in previous years. So there's going to be a lot of patience. This is a crazy trend. Like literally you see that direction of the Bitcoin dominance going absolutely parabolic for multiple years. So could we see something like this? Because that's your alt season, 2017-18, 2020, 2021. That is what we need to see. So for that to happen, right, historically, if you look at this pattern, so Bitcoin dominance had a longer way to fall, 2017, and then, of course, got lower. I'm expecting this to remain, again, get smaller over time, right? So what is the likely scenario? Well, if you measure these, what I'm looking for is another possible spike to above 64%, and then some kind of reaction like this, but not as deep as this, and definitely not as deep as that. So it gets shallower over time, right? It gets smaller and smaller. It gets shallower and shallower over time, the level of Bitcoin dominance that we need to drop. But that looks like, right? And if I make it even easier for you, that looks like a smaller box that is going to give us not 40%, but I would probably say from the current levels, up to a 50% drop of the Bitcoin dominance due to the institutional demand should be reasonable expectation, right? Reasonable. Because if you do that, and again, you visually see it, it's not, I'm not making this up. It comes down like that before it spikes back up again. That could be one way. And then what happens after that is in the next bull cycle, Bitcoin dominance again becomes, as Bitcoin becomes larger and larger and larger, the level of dominance drop becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. That is a reasonable expectation. That's why I think this cycle, when it comes to understanding Bitcoin dominance, we will have a drop, but it will not be as catastrophic as these previous times when you did not have Bitcoin as a key strategic global asset with institutional demand. Okay, so this is my thesis, that as we go into the next cycles, Bitcoin dominance gets stronger. However, the drop that it has, because the market share will be so huge, the pattern continues to look like huge, it's relatively big. Then, of course, slightly bigger, then you get gradually smaller. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to compare the Bitcoin dominance drop of previous cycles to what we believe the next cycles will offer. And that definitely gives me an idea of how this Bitcoin dominance is going to work, all right? It could even be something like this, where the last cycle's one is smaller than the other one, but it's likely to be Bitcoin dominance coming up to this 70% over time, right? Hope I'm making sense anyway, guys. So as they were saying, US is printing its way out of the depression, and that is absolute facts. The US M2 money supply is going berserk, guys. is absolutely going bananas, bonkers, whatever you want to call it. It is absolutely time for the US to, look at this, you know, doesn't mean much, but that is all-time high. Again, previous peaks have been smashed. And, you know, at the moment, if I just remove these trend lines, just see that the US is printing healthily. Price discovery already above previous printing levels. That was the peak in 2022, right there. So the US M2 money supply is going nuts, guys, and it will be quite. It will be relevant, right? It'll be relevant. Now, of course, Fed balance sheet, another important metric here. Are we seeing a slight uptick? Absolutely. At the moment, it's good to see that this is not in a free fall anymore. What we're seeing here is, if I just move this, you could see that there is a slight sideways happening here, which means the Fed, although not definitively, because there have been periods here. You can see there's a period here where it goes sideways, very short, and then drops again. They get rid of the balance. That kind of continues. But what I'm noticing here is a slight kind of, you know, tapering of the Fed balance sheet. And it could be because they have been buying bonds. They have been buying bonds. USDT dominance, guys, has spiked yesterday. No obvious reasons needed as to why it spiked. It's quite clear it was in this bearish downtrend, and we need to really watch USDT dominance claiming this red line here. This is a very important line for USDT dominance right here, this red line. So we're hoping it's got momentum, but we're hoping that the RSI is also an indicator on the daily of more pain to come, right? Because look at the RSI has been absolutely flat. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a spark like that in the USDT dominance, causing short-term pain. Of course, that resistance over here is everything, right? That red line is everything here, under 5%. Okay, so that is the USDT chart over there. Total 3, of course, coming back into this very, very important support resistance line. I'd like to hold here, to be honest, but again, it's anyone's guess where it goes. At the moment, we need to stay strong at this level. Why am I saying that? That is because you have multiple support resistance lines at 822 billion. Lose that, and then you are going back to test. And again, you know, this is on a very important moving average, guys. Okay. The 10-year US yields falling too. No, we've averted that. Of course, we're coming back to test this trend line. That's all okay. That is the US Treasury 10-year bonds. And again, falling to 3.5% was literally that wasn't the unfortunately, you know, we or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, right now we are just going to retest this trend line. So we may come back to 4%, but we'll see how that develops. Okay, Ethereum dominance is just 9%, but we did say in the previous videos, if you look at the Ethereum double bottom of its dominance, the last being back in July 2019, what you have here is a potential Ethereum pullback to this 8% level, this Fibonacci level, which is key, and then continuing. But that would coincide with Bitcoin's price being around 2,240, as I've shown you with the Bitcoin dominant, the Ethereum price. Okay, so we looked at all of the big macro data. We've looked at all of the charts again. I have got a chain that I'm watching for the community that they can make money on, because smart money is piling onto it. Courtesy of Nansen, the show is sponsored by Nansen Finance. Honestly, take a look at my links in the description. Grab yourself Nansen, because that has made me a better investor by a long mile. And I'm already looking at some undervalued where smart chains, where smart money is starting to pile in and tiny in terms of market cap. So I should be announcing that at some point once I complete my research, courtesy of Nansen in the Discord. And of course, our Discord is just $9 a month, where we employ a lot of people and help a lot of staff to go work for the DXP community and research team. All right, guys, I think this has been a very good video, proper update. Let me know your comments about the situation with Musk. Smash a like, share this video with friends and family, because I do believe we can make good money together as we progress to the rest of the remaining 20%, 15% of the bull market. God bless you guys. Take care.